Hey folks, this is Kim. Welcome to livemorenow.net. Today we are coming to you live, which I would say is a little bit nerve-wracking, so stick with me here, folks. Today we want to talk about what to do when you make a mistake at work or you've really screwed up. Some of you may have seen a couple of my videos that talk about career mistakes that you should avoid. And again, I've got 3 tips today that hopefully will help ease the pain when you actually do screw up. Now, we all make mistakes. I've made plenty throughout my career, so it's perfectly normal. I'd say if you believe that you're immune to mistakes, then that's probably mistake number 1 for you. So, starting with tip number 1, try to be the first to get to your boss. There's nothing worse than your boss hearing about your mistakes from a coworker or even worse, a customer. So as soon as you become aware of whatever mistake it is that you made, you want to try to get some face time with your boss. And when you do, you want to make sure that you own that mistake. You're holding yourself accountable. Don't walk in and start pointing fingers or trying to make light of the situation. Give off the impression that you take this very seriously. Now, keep in mind that what you may not know, and you might be making worse by avoiding your boss, is that they may have experienced this before and they may have a perfectly reasonable solution, or even better, maybe it's not as big of a deal as you've made it out to be in your head. So again, generally speaking, avoiding the boss when you've screwed up is just never a good idea. It's a lose-lose for everybody involved. The quickest way to get on the road to recovery is by involving your boss and making sure that the solution works for everybody. Tip number 2, try to show your boss that you've already implemented a system that will prevent you from making the same mistake again. So let's say you missed a deadline. Show them that you've implemented in your Outlook calendar a way to get a pop-up reminder a couple days before the due date, or whatever that is, whatever makes sense. Let's say you lost an important document. Put a filing system together to avoid losing documents in the future. Again, whatever applies to your mistake, obviously, needs to be relevant to the solution. And keep in mind, you might not be the only one who's making these mistakes. So if your idea is clever enough, it's good enough, it's entirely possible that your boss might want to implement this new system department-wide. So that could be a serious silver lining for you. Again, it doesn't clear up the actual mistake at hand, but it will, make it a little less painful, hopefully. Number 3. Try to buddy up to the boss's favorite. If you have a coworker or a peer who is regarded as a top performer and well respected, particularly by your boss, then ask them for help. Most people like to be acknowledged as a top performer. So if you go to that person and say, "Hey, Susie, you always do such great work. I made this mistake recently. I missed a deadline, and I obviously don't ever want to do that again. Can I work with you a little bit and see how you do things?" A couple things are going to come out of this. Number 1, you'll probably get some really good training, tips, advice, whatever. And number 2, by kind of butting up to this person a little bit, you could be developing your biggest cheerleader. Chances are, if you show a genuine effort, this person will hopefully go to your boss and say, "Hey, I met with so-and-so and he or she told me what they did, and I just wanted you to know that we spent time together and it really seems like they're trying really hard." So that can only possibly work in your favor. So those are my 3 tips. I have a couple of questions that I've received from other viewers recently that I wanted to address specifically. Starting with somebody who said that it feels like my boss has it in for me. They seem to be picking on me, and what do I do? So there's a myriad of things that could be going on there. Obviously, not really knowing the whole story, it's hard to speculate, but a couple things come to mind. Number one, somewhere along the way, unbeknownst to you, you may have lost the boss's trust for a reason perhaps you're not even aware of. In that case, I strongly recommend get a meeting with the boss and just put it out on the table. Hey, I kind of getting this vibe. I'm getting the feeling that, things aren't working out very well, and I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job for you. Can you help me understand what's going on? Something along those lines. Bosses, managers are humans too, and sometimes they want to avoid a difficult conversation. So instead of addressing an issue head on, they kind of, use this passive aggressive technique of just kind of picking on you, which, obviously isn't helpful. But again, everybody's human. I've found when I have these open, honest discussions that even if you don't get specifics out of the meeting, hopefully it'll raise your boss's awareness that this is what's going on and hopefully get things on the right track. Sometimes there's just not a good chemistry match. Maybe your boss feels threatened by you or just doesn't like you. And that's unfortunate and it doesn't seem fair, but it definitely happens. So in that scenario, I would say maybe try to transfer to a different department, see what you can do to hopefully work for a different boss. Obviously quitting your job is not ideal, but you might need to work on your resume and get out there and find other opportunities. I would say going to your boss's boss would be like the nuclear option, because that could go sideways really fast, especially if your boss's boss really likes your boss, and in which case it's probably maybe not even an option. Another thing maybe you could do is find a mentor in the organization, somebody who's above you and could perhaps provide some unbiased feedback. This is what I'm seeing. You guys have a negative dynamic. You talk like this and the boss doesn't like it. And just so you know, your boss is not that kind of person. This is how I think that you should approach it. And they could offer some really sound advice as an outsider looking in. But again, try to get somebody who's above you on equal ground with your boss. So hopefully that'll help. And let's see. Somebody wrote, somebody said, I screwed up big time and I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. So there are fireable offenses. Very rarely are first-time mistakes something that you would get fired for, unless, of course, you're doing something illegal like stealing, in which case you deserve to be fired. But it costs companies a lot of money to hire, recruit, train new people. It's not their first resort. So unless your mistake was really, really, really bad, chances are that if you show some effort, you're apologetic, you're doing everything you can to prevent that from ever happening again, you'll hopefully be given a second chance. So try to not worry about that. I mean, if you're really, really worried, like it looks like it's going that way, watch some of my job search videos and get that resume updated and start getting some feelers out there. So I think that's all the questions we have for today. So in closing, folks, like I kind of said, depending on the gravity of your mistake, chances are you're not going to get fired for making one mistake the first time. Usually people get fired for repeat offenses, and you should see it coming if that's the case. So hopefully those 3 tips, again, getting with your boss first and holding yourself accountable, putting a system in place to prevent it from happening again, and buddying up with a top performer who can hopefully guide you through some of these sticky times will help you get back on track and on the road to success. So thank you so much for visiting livemorenow.net. If you like what you saw, please click subscribe. Share this video if you know anybody else who might benefit from this, and post your comments in the comment section below. Thank you so much.